Hello, ladies and gents. It's Dan from Adventure More UK. Welcome to my new podcast, new episode for the year. So today I've got a special guest with me. He's a former training partner. He's a British powerlifter, and he's also an army veteran. The man is Mr. Aaron Hull. How are you going, mate?
Yeah, cheers for having us, Dan. Not bad. How are you keeping? Well?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. As we said before, I first met you probably 13, 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we've both kind of changed. We're both bald and you're slightly bearded.
Heavier.
So, heavier. No,
You definitely outbearded me, though, I think.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, because hang on. So what were you weighing at? Like, what were you training at? Like, competing at that time?
I was in 90 kilo category then.
Bloody hell.
And now I'm in the 105s. I'm in a different federation and the weight classes are a little bit different. But yeah, 105 kilo now. So
Yeah. But
not
yeah.
too
So
much heavier. Still 15k. Still a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, like obviously I basically met you in my first unit when I first joined up, and obviously you wasn't when I left basically. So you won't know this, but I went up to about 115 kilos. Believe it or not, I was a.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8" to 9.
I'm saying that. I think you're taller than me. I think I'm only 5'7", 5'8".
I was going to say I thought you were about 5'2", something like that.
What it is.
Nah. You've got short levers, haven't you? You got short levers.
I don't know. I've got deceptively long. I've got short legs and a long spine, like a monkey. I've got really long arms, so I suppose powerlifting, suppose ideal for me. I think.
Yeah. No, definitely. Now, mate, I'll say I'm going to talk about beforehand is like what you did up until you joined the army, because I know you joined the army young like me, and there's a few things I want to talk about that. But what did you do beforehand?
Just start fights and good, you know. I was only 16 when I joined, so it was pretty much straight from school. But yeah, school, like I skived off quite a lot, and I was a bit of a lad. But luckily, I did really well on my GCSEs and stuff like that. I don't know, stroke of luck or just like I want to say intelligent, but I won't go that far. But
Yeah.
I don't know right on my exams, and then obviously the aptitude test for the army. There was like, in fact, I went to join the paras, and at the time it was like you're too scrawny and too intelligent, so too scrawny and too intelligent to join the paras. So I ended up obviously in the signals, and that's how obviously I came across you. But I'm glad now because obviously that gave the promotions and stuff like that. Because obviously, as you know, I was only 22 when I got promoted to sergeant, which was the youngest on record in it, which you don't hear of that.
No, you don't. No.
If I'd have joined the paras, that would probably never been the case.
No, it's crazy. I was going to say, like, being obviously you got your Lance Corporal, or Lance Jack as we call it, out of training, didn't you? Like I think like, as a tech, and then I think you came to 21 SIGs as a full screw, didn't you? As a corporal.
Yeah, I was a corporal straight from Germany. I think it was only 19-year-old. Yeah, as a corporal, which is
it's crazy, isn't it? Like nowadays, to be honest, I don't think that's very common nowadays.
It's slowing it right down.
Yeah. It's and like you say, I don't know if that's still the record. Is that a record? As you say record, it's more like it's just a generic kind of thing, isn't it? Like being the youngest sergeant. Was that just in the signals, or was that in the army?
Army-wide, as long as manning and records had existed, which I think I think they probably came into control of obviously manning and postings and stuff a long time. So you know.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I met you like obviously as a full screw, as a corporal, and then obviously you got promoted. Obviously, people didn't know like I was a signaller, which is like a private equivalent. Obviously, sometimes there was a little bit of like, because obviously we became really good mates, but like I think there was a lot of people who must have thought it was a bit weird, like if that makes sense. Like there might have been people who saying, "Oh, why are you hanging around with a sergeant?" or vice versa, because obviously there's like a senior rank system and all that people get a bit arsy about.
Yeah, the thing is, like people get promoted into certain ranks, and it changes like who they are. Like they're supposed to behave in a certain way, where I was just always the same person. I think that's and to be honest, I never had to shout at anyone. I never got into arguments with anyone. And I think the lads in my team and stuff like that, especially when I went to Caution, they were just I don't know if it was just because they respected me for that or just because I'm not a dickhead, you know. And they worked to me. The team was always the best teams and always getting the stuff done, like above and beyond all the other teams and stuff. And I never took credit for it. It was always them. So it was it just worked. I think I think if people don't like you and don't respect you, the only way people will do the work is then if you're shouting at them and stuff like that, which is obviously army, you know, and it's not about that.
No. I've got mates now. I don't know about you. I'm sure you still got mates in. I've got mates who have done like training establishments like Purbright and stuff. Which is obviously for people who don't know, it's where all a lot of squaddies go nowadays to do their training, etc. And it seems very. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate that we're living in a different time and kind of generation, but it seems like it's going quite like very PC and very like, I'll just shout and swear at recruits anymore and stuff like that. It's I don't feel like it has the same effect as like our generation or even the generation before us of like the Gulf War generation before that, which was even different to us. So
thing is,
it's different.
It's like one part of me thinks that they need it, and then I think the other part is that just like some sort of like inbuilt bitterness because I went through that, so why shouldn't they have to? And actually, should they have to? I don't know. If you look now, they're fitter and stronger than ever, and they're doing a better job than ever. So I don't know. I think maybe that is the way that it should go. Without being soft, there's a difference in there. If there's still a criteria to meet, and it's physical, but then obviously the people aren't soft. I think so. You need a certain mental drive to achieve some of the goals that they have to do and stuff. So I don't know. But then on the flip side, PTSDs are all-time high and stuff like that. And is that because people aren't going through? Because obviously in training, when we went through training, and the people before us even more so, there's a certain level of what's the word? Like you need a certain mental endurance about it, or hardness. And those that don't have that don't pass training don't pass basic training. Sorry. Where like now, if that's not the case and they are passing, does that predispose them to PTSD because they wasn't filtered out in early stages? But the care is there. So I say the care is there. The care is there until you discharge from the forces, and then it's a bit different then. So
like I said, if I fast forward like to when I left, as most people know, and obviously you won't know as much because I haven't spoken to you for a while. So I left. Obviously, I had PTSD and all that. Some of the stuff I've seen and done in Afghan. Again, I don't know if you know this, but so for people that don't, obviously my podcast is called Catch on the Flip Side. Do you remember Dave Grout?
I do remember Dave. I didn't know him very well personally. I just a couple of passing. He sadly passed away. I know you was quite close with him if I remember right. But
Well, that's obviously the reason why it's called that, because that's the last thing he said to me before he died. As he got on the plane to go on R&R from Afghan, and that's what he said. I'll catch you on the flip side. I'm like, yeah, no worries. And then obviously, he got decked outside a pub and hit his head on the floor and died of a brain injury, which it's crazy.
It is crazy, come from a war zone and then die at home in a fight.
Yeah, it's crazy, and that's why it's called. But so that was one of the main sort of factors of along with other things that I've seen and done over there. And for me, like people, I would still get me wrong. PTSD isn't to do with like just military people, who've done, fighting in Afghan or Iraq or whatever. Obviously, there's people who civilians who've been involved in. Even just little things that might not seem so big to us might be a big thing to them because it's just something that sticks in your head. And obviously, I know,
stigma with it as well, isn't there? I know a lot of people people can get PTSD from what would be like quite trivial stress, and a lot of people that have been through much worse, who don't have PTSD, are very quick to go, oh, they've just been weak or this or that. And it's, you know, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Some of the toughest people I've ever met suffer with PTSD. And some of the things they've went through, some of them haven't been involved with deaths or anything like that. It's just from being in Afghanistan or Iraq for 6 months, coming under mortar attack every day, which is, well, rocket attacks every day and IEDs.
Yeah.
And they might not have seen anything, none of them might not hit, but the stress of that day in, day out, you know, rockets coming in. Some people just get desensitized to it, and, you know, the IDF alarm goes off and everyone's just like, you first on, so everyone's diving on the deck. And by the end of it, you know, you walk into the shower block in your flip-flops. It's like, because you're desensitized to it. But the thing is, a lot of people don't get desensitized to it, and they're the ones who ultimately end up with PTSD and stuff like that. So
it's crazy. I know when I was in when I was in Iraq, which was 2007, I went with 21-6, and basically we stayed in what's called the Cobb, and I remember. Also, the drill was, when you're over there, is that when you hear the alarm, which in Iraq was generally mortars. That's what the main issue was compared to Afghan. So you jump out of a vehicle, you don't, you know, dive into the trench on the side of the road or whatever it may be. This was obviously on camp, not obviously in the middle of Basra. But you literally jump out. I remember a story. It was 2 RAF lads who did that. And basically they slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and then the irony was that if they'd have carried on driving and not listened to the alarm, the mortar would have landed behind them. But because they stopped, the mortar landed directly on top of the Land Rover and killed them both. I remember that, and it was crazy. And it's, you know, it's one of them, you never know when it's going to happen to you. You know, it's happened. You know, our old accommodation block when I was in Iraq, got hit by a mortar, and that was after we'd moved out. We moved out to another part of the camp, but again, it was, luckily there was no one in it at the time, but it was actually in and around, like, only for, you know, less than 10-20 meters from where we used to physically, you know, sleep in the tents. It's crazy, man. It's really crazy, and you just think yourself lucky sometimes. But again, it can happen in any part of your life. But kind of brings me on to like what you do now. I know you're working. Is it more like tech support you're working?
To some degree, it's not really tech support. I work in so the job title is actually Network Analyst, but basically it's working on a wide range of systems, from trivial stuff to putting IP phones out on desks to, you know, like gathering information on a cyber attack that came across us, project rollouts, so like wireless deployments through new sites and provisioning routers and switches for new sites. It's like, we're sort of like third line to some degree.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got a service desk, they'll escalate to like the desktop and IT, and then if they can't resolve it, it comes to networks where like the gods of the...
That's for is that, you say it's for a mental health trust?
It is a mental health trust, yeah. So we liaise with all the teams often and stuff like that, and it's a very, I say, small trust. There's only like 2,000-3,000 staff, which sounds a lot, but it's not. Keeping in mind, like, you've got like HR, catering, transport. Yeah. It's very much, in fact, the NHS is very much like the military in its structure, pay scales, and just how it's run, just minus the like camouflage and shouting. But it's very much how it's run. Yeah, it's good.
Do you ever get involved with the actual? I know you do, like the sort of technology side of it. Do you ever get involved in like the actual mental health side of it, like helping people?
Not directly, but we've got in fact we've got a team who, as it is my management as well. He's ex-forces too, and we've got a great working relationship. We liaise with a team that's for veterans, obviously the vet service, and ironically, all the people in the veteran service have never served, so they don't really know much about it. So obviously, that's where me and Andy, my manager, sit down and we talk with them and like explain things, because if someone's offloading or venting to them and they're using terms and terminologies, they don't want to stop them and ask them, could you tell me what that is? Because it just makes them look like they don't know what they're doing. they'll come to us and say, what's this and what's that and what's this. So it's sort of like it's good for us to be in the position we're in to allow us to bridge that gap between them and the service users. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's just just going back to what you mentioned earlier about like the help you get when you leave. So actually, for me, like when I left, I didn't get much help at all before I left. So whilst I was still in the military, I actually got more help when I left. Which again, I left, like I said, 9, 10 years ago, nearly now, and I feel like it's probably a lot different now. I don't know if you can kind of say anything on that. Like, is it a bit different now, or is it still very kind of not very complex as such?
There's some very in the forces. There's such disparity between each one of them. It's crazy. So my girlfriend, she's just left the RAF due to obviously PTSD as well, and the care and stuff that she's received is so much different to what we went through and stuff like that. With us, it was just sort of like nothing. In the army, it's like, okay, you're leaving. Here's a list of entitlements for your courses and how to apply for your courses you want to do. Other than that, you won't speak to anyone or see anyone. And on your last day, it's just like, yeah, cheers for your service, off you go. It's like, oh, well, is that it? And it's just all of a sudden you've just gone, it's all I've known since I was 16 from school. Literally, never lived on my own, never done anything on my own. Literally, as a schoolboy, joined the army and everything's, here's your food, here's your bedroom, here's everything. And then, obviously, 15 years later, it's all of a sudden, I don't even know how to pay bills, I don't know anything. You don't get shown no life skills. There is no, people say join the forces and you get life skills. It's the absolute opposite. You don't learn any life skills.
No.
And when you come out, and it's hard to integrate, not hard to integrate, but it's like the civilians are just on a complete different wavelength, because like the jokes and the banter isn't the same as the forces. Like when you're in the army, like people you've never met before, it's just it's just banter, and you come out as a civilian, and people take offence, and it's like, ooh. So I mean, I've had one complaint put in against me. It was all, obviously once it all got investigated, it was all quashed and stuff like that, and it literally just is. They're just not the same. Well, it's not them that's not the same. It's us. It's us that are veterans that are changed, and I just don't think people are aware of that's how veterans are. They don't understand the background that we've come from, stuff like that. But it
is true. It is true. Like I know what you mean. Like I've had not complaints as such, but people say, "Look, Dan, you can't say that. You can't do this."
Yeah, consistently, you can't say that. That's it.
Because obviously we come from a background where, to me and you, it'll be a bit of banter and all that, but to some other person who's not served in the military, it's probably considered bullying or, that kind of thing.
But that's it in the forces. Like, bullying was a rarity, and if it was, people were very quick to like all turn on the person that was out of order, and everyone looks after everyone, and everyone just rinsed everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got rinsed people, I rinsed them back, and pranks to death. Where, that's it. And it's just like just jokes and stuff. Where on the civilians, a lot of them, it's like, they can't say that you've offended them and stuff like that. And it's And if you as a spectator looking in, or if it was written down on paper and you analysed it, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course it's offended him. Look at it.
Yeah.
Part of your thought process when you come out. And I think when you come out, it's like, here's some courses you can do and stuff like that. And bringing your qualifications up to date and stuff is all well and good. And that side of it, I think the Army do really well. They look after you in that, and you've got your grants to get your courses. And so obviously I did the Cisco certifications and stuff, which served me well. But you don't get taught how to integrate and talk to civilians at all. And it's just, But
I'm the same. Like I said, I left. Like you say about the grants, I did all my fibre optics and copper cabling stuff. Usual kind of BT stuff. That's what I did when I first left. I went and worked for BT and then worked for a subcontractor. But for me, like I didn't enjoy it. Like I'm not gonna lie. I did it for about 3 years, like both BT and then subcontracting, and then I kind of realised like, look, this isn't for me. Like it's the old saying of same shit different day. I literally would go into someone's house, fit a phone line, come out, go next door, or I might, there was days where I'd go and travel from where I live here in Blackburn all the way down to like Macclesfield, which is kind of near the Peak District, and then, after being in the afternoon, I'd drive up to bloody somewhere up in the Lake District, like somewhere up near like Carlisle or something, to go and do 2 or 3 houses, and I'm like, it's an absolute piss take, but
Yeah, nightmare.
it's crazy. Like for now, like obviously people know that most people know now that I work with kids now. Well, pre-COVID, I worked with kids doing outdoor activities, outdoor education. And do you know what? I know people say their jobs are the best in the world and whatever. You like, don't get me wrong. I work in a big supermarket, and people, they've been there 15, 20, 30 odd. There's got a lady who works for us who's been there 40 years, and she loves it. But I've been there, nearly a year now since before COVID, and when I started there. And do you know what? Like I'd only been there a few months, and I was like, this is rubbish. Like I can't do this. That I've got to do it because I've got to pay my bills. There's nothing else to do. But
Yeah.
it's just one of them. But working with kids for me, like, is amazing. Like I get to work with like the future generation. It sounds cliche, but it's true. Like when I went to Australia, like, so obviously for people who don't know, I came back from Australia sort of March last year. Um, when I was over there, I met a guy who was like, is it Kelly Slater, the surfer? He's like the world champion surfer, or was at the time. I think that's his name. But he was like the up and coming young version of him. And I was like, that's amazing. I met a guy who was sort of the predecessor. He's like the New Zealand equivalent predecessor of Lewis Hamilton. Like, it's just been sponsored by Red Bull. He was only 16 years old. He didn't even have a driver's license, and he was driving Formula 3 or Formula 2, whatever it is. And he was doing that, and I was like, this is amazing. I've met kids who are like just going places. You know what I mean? More than what some people that live in my hometown. It's crazy.
Never do. That's
Well,
good. Kids' minds are amazing, aren't they? As well, they're not influenced much by other people's opinions and stuff. It's like raw what they're feeling and stuff. So you talk to them and stuff, and you're like, that's their own opinion. Where now you can't really talk to many people. People don't tend to have their own opinion. They tend to repeat other people's opinions or be
yeah,
swayed by someone, and then that becomes their opinion instead of just saying what they're thinking. That way, kids, like teenagers especially, they'll just say what it is. My daughter's a teenager now, and she's like, yeah, argumentative to death, but
yeah,
she's
yeah.
person and stuff. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, like
So,
it is like you say, like people. My only problem is with like social media. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some good things on social media, but like you said, there is what they call, like, in inverted commas, like influencers. And all they are is people who've got so many millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers on whatever social media it is. Like, and they don't really have any life. Some are, don't get me wrong. There is people who've got like proper life lessons to come from certain backgrounds where you think, no, fair enough. But there's some who've just been born into money and stuff like that, and haven't really worked hard to be where they are. But then they'll put some bloody quote up on Instagram or whatever, and everyone's like, oh yeah, 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 share that, share that. And for me, like, I'm just like, why are you listening to these type of people just because they've got millions of subscribers or whatever?
I think it speaks volumes for the people that are influenced by these people. If you need somebody on Instagram to tell you what you should be doing with your morning and days, then the harsh reality is you need to probably look in the mirror and say, am I ever destined for anything? Because if I need someone on Instagram to tell me to stop being a fat lazy shit or whatever, or
Yeah,
to do something with my life, then it's probably heading to nothing anyway, and it'll still probably amount to nothing.
yeah,
I think successful people, the drive always comes from within, and if your personal drive and the fire in your own belly isn't there, then anyone else showing their fire in their belly isn't going to make you any better. You need to take the driving wheel yourself and make it happen. And excuses and stuff. A lot of people have a lot of excuses, and it's like, taking my sport for once, people go, oh, my legs are aching, I'm not going to train today and stuff like that. And I just think, I've got friends that don't even have legs from,
yeah, yeah,
places being and stuff like that. they'd love to be you. They'd be training and doing it every day. They wouldn't be going, "Oh, my legs are
Yeah,
sore.
yeah.
I'm not doing this." But yeah, and that's
Yeah,
I'm not, it's not even a very hard sport. It's fundamentally it's quite a lazy sport. You can only commit so much time in a day because you, you're fried after that. You're once you're done, you're done. Where some sports it's like cycling and stuff. And I know you had the triathlon go on yesterday. The commitment
yeah,
to that must is insane. So that's hours and hours per day, every day. It's not. Um, but yeah, influencers and stuff. Some of them, yeah, great. Some of them that have got like the people that have lived it and have been a nobody, and then turned their life around. They should be influencing people. People that
yeah,
have just been born into a bit of money and drive a fast car and make shitty songs.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
they're influencers. If people are being influenced by them, then they're fucking idiots, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it? Like we live in a generation where that is kind of quite common nowadays. And for me, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting to change the world with this podcast. If I can change one person or help one person, and they help one person or two people, that's how I like to think. I'd like to help people. If I can help one person and they help another, and that'd be great for me. I'm not expecting to stand here and have millions of subscribers, in the next week, and then everyone's like, "Oh, Dan's amazing," blah blah blah. He's done this, he's done that. I think he's amazing. I don't expect that. I expect to just chat as we are now and just help people one day. That's something I'm hoping to do as a business as well. So like I said, people who know me well, I've been over the last few years, I've been going into schools talking about stuff like that, about how overcoming adversity. And for me, like, at my lowest, a lot of people know this, especially some of my close friends. I was an alcoholic for when I left the army. It's something I was drinking. I put a post up about this last year because it was 4 years since I left, stopped drinking, and I was drinking. I think something ridiculous, like it was like 7 times the amount of I can't. Yeah, it was something anyway. It was a lot. It was a lot, basically. It was basically more than a week's amount of units I was drinking per day. Like it was ridiculous. So I'm not saying I've not had the shittiest life in the world. I've had a good upbringing. My mum and dad brought me up really well. It's just the last few things. If I can help someone, then I will. Um,
What a lot of people need to realise though is some people have perfect lives and they've still got really bad mental health issues, and like you can't ever look from the outside and go, oh, well, he's got money, he's got a nice house, he's got a good-looking girlfriend, he's got everything, but he might be manic depressive from things that we don't know, or his thought process. He might feel unfulfilled. You never know. And then on the flip side, you might see someone who should look like they should be sad, and they're not. They're some of the happiest people you'll meet.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think from looking out in, you'll never see what someone's going through. And that obviously brings on to the topic of suicides and stuff. And
yeah,
suicides a lot of the time are completely out the blue. It's the people that you talk to often, you text your mates, and then next minute, gone, and it's just like, and I think what you're doing is a great thing. It's like helping to lift the stigma on, like people talking about mental health and just
yeah, yeah,
people talk, or even just people watching this video, might think, actually, it's saying there people do understand us, but it's just no one's talking about it. And just knowing that there's people around that understand what you're going through is, a good thing. Any
yeah,
positive change in that person's life is a good thing. Yeah. Oh, speaking of help, before I forget, because I will forget, I offer free programming during lockdown for veterans, so strength programming. Even if you've only got minimum kit at home, just drop us a message. Dan will put my Instagram
yeah,
details on
absolutely.
there. Drop us a message with the kit that you've got, the days that you want to train, and we'll put something together and get you moving, get you strong.
Yeah,
So
no, awesome, mate, awesome.
getting people strong. So yeah, so
Yeah,
lose that offer because after lockdown you're on your own. And
yeah, yeah,
no, always reach out to me, especially veterans and stuff. So even if you're actually still serving and not a veteran, I know the struggle of trying to balance obviously the army fitness and PT and stuff like that. But yeah, still give me a shout. We can get something working. So
yeah. No,
cool.
absolutely, mate. I'll chuck that in description and all that, and we'll get you sorted. It's going back to that a little bit what you just said before about suicide and all that. and mental health. But I always tell kids like I might not gone through what you have been through. Like I might not have gone through a bad breakup, or I might not have gone through like my parents splitting up, or whatever it may be, because I haven't. But I know what suffering is. I know what pain is. But I always say to kids, I think the saying is, pain is temporary, suffering is just voluntary. So if you might end up having these situations where it causes a lot of pain and a lot of stuff like like you might have had someone who's committed suicide, or someone who's got a terminal illness or something. But it's not just you who's been through that. There's always going to be other people around the world who have been there. And like I said, I'm very much open to helping people, like, because at the end of the day, when I'm old and decrepit, as again going back to working with kids, never one day I could turn around and say, see someone who's helping me, who could have someone I've talked to years and years previous. But something I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again, because I can't remember if I have or not. But there was a survey done in a terminal illness, sort of what they call end of life ward, as such, like homes. Basically, someone went round and said, like, is there any to these elderly people, or just people who are not elderly, just end of life, and said, look, is there anything you regret doing in life? And for the most part, people was like, well, I don't actually regret doing anything. It's the things I hadn't done that I regret not doing. Which I think that's a good thing. Like, because I don't want to get to my deathbed at whatever age it may be, because you never know when it could be. Just talk a little bit about, because I know you do powerlifting, but strongman. I follow strongman quite a lot, more than powerlifting, if I'm being honest. But I watch strongman quite a lot. And there's a guy called Aaron Page. I don't know if you know him. I've heard about him. Yeah, he died just before end of the year last year, and unfortunately he died of COVID. And he was in the peak of his career. He was just about to qualify for the world's strongest man, and he was only, I think he was about my age, 30 something, early 30s, and he was looking at doing this. He's going to be the new up and coming sort of British strongman. And unfortunately passed away of COVID. So you never know when it's going to happen. So it's just live your day every day as if it was your last. That's what I always say. Now I want to speaking of strongman, or that kind of strength kind of sports. Like, obviously, you, as I mentioned earlier, do powerlifting. You don't do just powerlifting. You're a British powerlifter. You've been in the European team, and you've competed at the World Powerlifting Championships?
So not in my current federation. My current federation, the standard is so high. But when I left the forces, I lifted for the BDFPA, which is the British Drug-Free Powerlifting Association. I won the British Championships with them, which qualified me to go to the Worlds, and I won the Worlds, which is the WDFPF. All that was in the 100 kg category. However, there was a federation alongside this where the standard was much higher, so I moved across to them. Luckily, I won my first British Championships with them, not by much, and I've only competed once with them, and I just missed out on a podium spot by, I think it was like 5 kg or something, but the standard has just ramped up so much in the last couple of years. But my progress is flying as well, so so I'm in a good place, and hitting PBs recently, so I've just done a 305 raw squat, a 225 raw bench press, and then a 305 token deadlift, which is my weak lift, but it's getting there. Slowly. So I've invested a lot of time into it, and constantly learning all the time. So as long as we're moving forwards, that's all we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Are you able to train pretty well like during these current times, or you got like stuff at home?
Yeah, luckily. So I've got a full garage setup, which means like nothing's compromised. I can do all I need to do here. So not too bad.
That's pretty good then. So something that I read about you, or I think it's on your Instagram. It says the road to 900. Like, I'm pretty certain I know what it is, but for people who don't, like, what is the road to 900?
Inflammation and hobbling. So my training frequency, I train 5 times a week, which is it's not super high frequency, but the nature of the sport is probably about optimal. Because the problem is you could train every day with all the fire in your belly that you want, but your progress will just usually go down because you're not recovering. So I said earlier about being quite a lazy sport. The sessions are hard, very hard. Don't get me wrong, but for the rest of the time, you're not actually training. You're all training for a couple of hours every day. But so I mean, I'm like squatting 2 or 3 times, bench pressing 3 times, and deadlifting twice, and plus all the ancillary movements that go with them. But so the road to 900 is going to be sort of a 4-month volume block, which is lots and lots of work, build up the foundations, maybe pack on a little bit of muscle as much as a drug-free lifestyle will allow me to, and then from that start transmuting all that and translating it to maximal strength and power. For those that are watching that are into their strength, my philosophy, which I used to actually talk with a guy called Fred Hatfield, who I think is one of the best lifters to ever grace the planet, but he's sadly died of old age now. I used to talk with him a lot, and the importance of developing what's called the components of strength. And he realised that so say for example, if you take the bench press, you have a certain trait called start strength, which is the amount of force you can produce, instantly in one go, and then keeping that strength turned on and adding more and more to it, so recruiting more and more muscle fibre to accelerate the bar. And he said there's 2 types of lifters. There's those that pop, so say for example off the chest, so they'll lift up the chest real quick, and then it'll slow down and they'll squeeze the lift, and that's because they're not accelerating, they're not recruiting more and more fibre. And then the other type of lifter is them that they struggle to get it going, but once it's going, it gets faster and faster and faster. So they lack start strength, and identifying that in each individual lifter is super important. And there's exercises you can prescribe to address that. So say for example on the bench press, you would do what's called, if you lack start strength, you would do pin press, so you would press it off pins, sort of like a dead bench press, if that makes sense. So you press it off a catch bar, so that's taken all the weight, and you're obviously firing it from nothing. Whereas if you do the other type of lifter where you can accelerate, you probably use bands or chains on top of the load. So as the bar gets higher, you're having to recruit more and more force. With some very, very specific loads, like weights on the bar for them traits as well. And as soon as I did that, I went from 180 kilo bench press to 220 kilo bench press in about a year. Keep in mind, it took me 8 years to get to 180.
Yeah.
So it's so revolutionary, and he was so far in front of the game. He squatted 465 kilos at 46 years old with no equipment. And it's
That's crazy.
Easily as well, if you watch the video of him, that's insane. But amazing.
That's crazy. I remember when we used to train. Like I said earlier, we used to train at 21.6 with Jay. Now I'm hoping to get Jay on the show at some point. I've emailed him, but again, if you don't know who he is, Jay Alderton. He's a massive fitness influencer now. He's awesome at what he does, and ironically, you've gone on to doing British and world championships in powerlifting. He's gone on to be one of the most successful UK fitness influencers, and then there's me. So just me. That nothing else. I've not really. I played rugby. Everyone knows I play rugby, but not to any level of what you guys do. Don't get me wrong. I've played against in charity of teams, like touring teams. I played against World Cup winners, and I played alongside World Cup winners. I'm not as fit as I used to be, and I think when we were training many years ago, as we mentioned before we started recording, I was up and above. My deadlift was always my strong point for me personally, and I was always up and above sort of 210, sort of like 200, 210.
I think you pulled a 220. You had 5 plates on 20 kilo plates. There was, and you definitely had 5 plates on. I remember you pulling 220 for a single. I think technique broke down. It was the most horrific lift I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But you must have only weighed about 70 kilo at the time. So
yeah, I was going to say. I was probably only 70. I think I was about 74 kilos, 75 kilos.
So pretty much a 3 times bodyweight deadlift, and that was only after 6 months of powerlifting training. So,
Yeah, that was just basically me just taking out all and to be honest, like obviously you were relatively new to it, so you were still technically learning yourself. I suppose you are still learning in
still
theory.
learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So me, I was basically learning from you, who was already still learning. So I reckon if I was to go back and do it, which I do want to, I think stuff like powerlifting, or I hate to say it, but like CrossFit type stuff is. I can see you. I can see you grinning.
Podcast over.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Go on,
think
mate.
CrossFit's probably great for. I don't think it's good as a. I know it is a competitive sport, but I don't think it's a good competitive sport. But as a way to get in shape and lose weight and maintain a bit of muscle and just conditioning in general, I genuinely think it's great. I know it gets a lot of flack in the powerlifting world and stuff, but
Yeah,
especially for off-season stuff, and I think if people remove the competitive element, you'd remove all CrossFitters are broken. You look at them all; they're all together with glue and sellotape and all sorts. Every time you see one, there's like,
yeah,
what's all
yeah.
the bands around your neck? Oh yeah, pulled my, done this, done that. And I think if they remove the competition away, it remove the injury rates with it. And the other thing with it is there's some movements that are just ridiculous, like
Yeah.
unpopular comment, but like kipping pull-ups. It's not a test of strength. It's not a test
No.
of fitness. It's sort of like swinging in time with the bar as long as your body will let you swing and kick your legs. You know, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
and Olympic lifts as well, like trying to impose the Olympic lifts on them. And it's the Olympic lifts are such a specific, skillful movement that people dedicate like the whole life to. So just to throw that into a sport that's got a million other things is a bit
Yeah.
daft, really.
It's
Yeah.
quite a lot to concentrate on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
It's the pull-ups and the Olympic lifts, and even the deadlift to some degree, as to why people don't take CrossFit serious. Because people that are masters in them sports and disciplines just watch it and think, "What the fuck are they doing? Why don't they just stick to doing like you know?"
Yeah. There's many videos. Like, as I said before, like I'm big into my strongman stuff. Not physically at the moment, but I mean like watching as a spectator. And there's a lot of people I follow who would look at CrossFit and absolutely ridicule it. But it's funny because I watched a video with Eddie Hall, who destroyed one of their WOD workouts. He absolutely destroyed it, and even himself, who's obviously one of the best strongmen of all time, who said he actually can understand sort of like you said, there's certain aspects of it that are good, but some of it is pretty crap. But obviously, I know as a powerlifter yourself, like there's a lot of difference between strongman and powerlifting. Like obviously, for instance, I know particularly with the deadlift, most strongman deadlifts probably wouldn't count because like hitching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, would you? How do you ever look at like people doing strongman? Like, if you ever watch like when Ford did his 501 or when Eddie did his 500, do you ever look at it and think it's not quite?
Strongman is a brutal sport. There's a lot of it though that's a bit like smoke and mirrors. You know, like when people do like carrying a motorbike or do whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's on a leverage and stuff like that. But to be honest, the strength of some of the strongman is insane. So I lift at a place, and I see a guy there often, a lad called Luke Richardson. So I train at. It's actually, well, it's Luke's gym. I train at predominantly.
Yeah, Europe's strongest man last year.
Yeah, and you know he's done 1,000 kilo total in powerlifting before going to strongman. So when you see people, you know, beating Luke, don't get me wrong, I think he is the future of strongman, and I think in time to come he will win it. But when you see people making Luke look averagely strong, you think he must be like really strong because Luke is, you know, Luke's really strong, you know, and it's like, yeah, impressive. He's a big guy though, you know, he's like 160 kilo or whatever it is. But still to make him look distinctly average.
Yeah. Did you watch the World's Strongest Man this year, like at Christmas? Did you watch it on the telly? Yeah, same. But then if you look at someone like the winner, Alexei Novikov, like he's only small for a strong man. He's only like 6'1", I think, 6'1". He's only like 135 kilos, which is very. You go back to like Thor when he was at his prime. He's 8 or 9, and 205 kilos.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. And he he's just. I think it must be that kind of. It's kind of like that. It seems to me, from an outsider, is like this Eastern European kind of crazy like weight lift, like strength athletes that come from that part of the world. Like, do you get a lot of people from that neck of the woods doing
I think,
powerlifting?
yeah, of course you do. So, drugs aside, because obviously, like, um, there's a lot to drugs answer for a lot, but obviously,
Yeah,
not because you go to any average gym and every
yeah,
guy in there is on sunbeds and steroids, but they're not well
yeah,
strong. So I'll take that aside. But I think there's something to be said for powerlifting anyway. I think a lot of the old Eastern Bloc type lifters and like Russians and stuff like that, I think it's not even a case of is somebody on steroids or not. It's just a general part of the regime of training and doing it. I'm just from like not personal experience, obviously, but just from the names that you see, they all lift in non-tested federations, and obviously Strongman's non-tested and stuff like that.
yeah,
But yeah, so I think that gives a lot of skews the results somewhat, and I think. Yeah, drugs allow us to see these things that are like amazing to see these feats of strength. But the thing is, for the athletes, is a lot of the time, all things equal, it just comes down to who's willing to trash their health the most and take the most substances, and that's what ends up coming down to. All things equal. So if you get someone who's genetically strong, well motivated, very good training program, stays injury free, and then takes just gets in their head, yeah, I'm going to die young, I'm going to take insane amounts of this. That's the makings of the best athlete, the best strongman that we'll probably ever see. But they make that sacrifice. So just like someone taking all that and doing all that, you can't really go, but he's on this. When actually it should be more a case of he's willing to do that to achieve that. What one hand takes away, the other one you've got to look at. And go, fair play to him if he's willing to.
Would you ever consider doing it? Would you ever consider doing strongman?
No, I'm too short to be a strongman. I'll do under 105s and stuff like that. But problem is it's not a popular sport at all for under 105s. People will care for. Because otherwise it's just like watching the same as the big guys, just with smaller weights. So it's not as interesting.
No, I get that. Yeah.
I just don't think I'm suited to the sport whatsoever. I had a couple of good little bits like log and stuff like that, and I had a go with stones a couple of times, but it just gave me an appreciation for it is a hard sport. But I think there's a lot of training philosophies to be tapped into with it as well. So if you look at like powerlifting and stuff like that, the training is so rigid because you only ever need to do a 1 rep max on 3 lifts, so you can sequence your training in a way that this block potentiates this block, and this block is going to allow you to do better in this block, and it's all moving forwards to these things. Where strongman isn't. Some things are for heaviest weight, some are for maximal reps, and some of them are dynamic, some of them are static, which just completely changes the whole dynamic way of training. And I think there is so many. I think for a sport that's so popular, the training methods and stuff like that are so what's the word? They're not formatted in a way that's generally accepted as good or bad. I think there's people are winging it. I think literally people are just winging it. I think they're just trying to do standard strength stuff, do events so they get a bit of skill on the events, and there's probably so much more to tap into in terms of the best way to do it. And I think that answers for why you get people that like Polish lifters and stuff like that are insanely good at any body weight, and I think it's down to training methods and stuff like that. It has to be not too dissimilar from a race perspective, But that's it. For someone 135 kilo to win it against people that were 170, 180 kilo who are good, not like running 100 meters half a second faster because you've got black genetics, or throwing a shot put half a meter further because you've got white genetics or anything like that. It's a massive difference. 50 kilo lighter and still winning is something that has to be down to stuff. It's got to be.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. One thing I want to get onto next, like just quickly, like I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but you know, you mentioned to me before, like about a couple of things you have, like illnesses you have that may
Yeah. So
like some.
um, obviously, I was on a course in the army when I got bit by a tick. I didn't think anything of it. I just and then like it was about, I don't know, a few days later, I came down with like the worst flu of my life, and just I didn't bridge the two together. And then over sort of like a period of time, I was getting more and more ill, more tired all the time. Just something off. I was aching everywhere. Even when I thought I was just overtraining, so I'd like tried taking a bit of time off, and it didn't change. I was still, and I just sort of accepted it. Of, you know, maybe I've just messed my body up. I was like 25 or something at the time, so I just persisted. I was getting worse and worse and worse, and I think I got to a stage where I went, I need to go to doctors. Something's not right. You know, convinced I'd like, I don't know, cancer or something like that. Because it was just a different level of fatigue. You know, it was like like literally at work, sneaking to go to the toilet so I could go to sleep for half an hour and stuff, despite having a good night's sleep, and something just wasn't right. I was still training. I never missed any training sessions or anything like that. So I went to the doctors, and they asked, like, they did loads of tests and said something was off with my white blood cells, and said, have I been bitten by anything or anything like that, or been ill? So I said, well, I've the worst flu of my life about, you know, like a year ago, and I've never been right since. And he said, did you eat anything or come in contact with anything? Or I was like, actually, yeah, a week before that, I had a tick bite on my toe. I was orienteering, and he went, oh, okay, so he's sent off for what's called a spirochete test or something, which is like some residual thing of Lyme's disease to test, and it came back positive, which is good because the test, even if you do have it, it doesn't always show. But it came back as a positive test, and it was like, oh yeah, you've got Lyme's disease. I was like, you joking? So I was having intravenous antibiotics like consistently. So yeah, slowly got better after that. And then along all this as well, I don't know if that was the catalyst for it, that I started getting worse after that as well. So I suffer with Crohn's disease as well. Luckily, it's not very bad. It's pretty well treated at home without pharmaceuticals. So, but I don't doubt there's going to be a time in my life where I'm probably going to need more medical intervention for that. But I can only do what I can, you know.
Yeah.
Stress seems to be the main trigger of it. So for the most part, so even obviously the Lyme's disease is gone and stuff like that, I'm still tired. Not always, but like some days, especially from stress and stuff, I'll wake up and I'll literally like slide out of bed feet first, like, and I'll just be on my knees on the floor, and my upper body will be on the mattress, and I'll just stay here for another 5 minutes, and like, you know, it's hard to get up, and I think combine that with training, but that's chronic fatigue as from what's called post-Lyme syndrome. But it's not always there. Just most of the time it's there, but it doesn't affect me at all, other than obviously being tired. But I still do what I've got to do. Sometimes just, you know, as you alluded to before, it's like I can't mow, and I've got 2 arms and 2 legs, and they're working. So more than what some people have. So that's enough for me, you know.
Yeah. No, you got to appreciate what you've got sometimes, aren't you? Like I said, there's a guy I follow on online, Kai. What's his name? It's going to annoy me now. It's going to annoy me. I can't remember his name now. It's put me on the spot. But he's basically got no arms and no legs, and like he's like so like he does everything. Like he can pretty much do anything. He can drive. Obviously, he's got an adapted car and all that. But he's got married. He got married, had kids, blah blah blah. You know, everything you can imagine, he can pretty much do, like within reason. Obviously, being all adapted. But yeah, he's honestly, I'll try and remember his name, and I'll tell you after. But at the moment, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But yeah, like I said, it's been good chatting to you, mate. Like we haven't had a proper full on chat for years, like absolutely years. And I know, and I've not physically seen you. I don't think I've seen you in person since we were at 21 SIGs, which was, as I say, like probably 13 years ago. Yeah, 13, 14 years ago or whatever.
Time goes quick. Time goes so quick.
It does, mate. Well, it's long overdue. So I think once everything's settled, we'll have to get together, and you'll have to try and well, Actually, I don't want to say that. I was going to say you have to try and beast me in the gym. But
You
I'm
have to
pretty
come over,
certain.
once lockdown's over and that, you'll have to come over, crash over, we'll get some sessions of food on and stuff.
Yeah, mate.
But yeah,
That'd
cheers
be
for
good.
having us.
It's been good, mate. Like I said, I like what I'll do is I'll put, like you were saying earlier about the stuff, services you provide and all that. I'll put all your social medias in the link in the description and stuff like that. So thanks very much, mate. It's been good chatting to you.
No
Long
problem.
overdue. For everyone else, I really appreciate everyone listening. If you want to take anything from it, as I say, I'm always happy to chat to people, no matter who you are and where in the world you are. I'm happy to chat to people. So if you want to catch me on my podcast, I'll check out my Venture More page on YouTube and other social media. And if I don't see you soon, I'll catch you on the flip side.